This is the home of the Common Joe and Common Sally in the Know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Well, how's it going out today, boys and girls in sporting land? And the coaching carousel, as I said before, it just continues to spin out of control. I just don't understand why some of these coaching moves are being made by some of these coaches. And as you know, today we find out that Brian Kelly is now leaving Notre Dame to go to LSU. So now we have a coaching vacancy that's been filled, but now we got another coaching vacancy that's open at a program where you can basically go out and take another team's coach. And the leader in the clubhouse right now, from a lot of reports, is Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Matt Campbell has always expressed interest in the Ohio State and Notre Dame jobs. He's a Midwestern type guy, and that's his dream jobs. So now the Notre Dame job is open. So I think it's Matt Campbell's job to turn down. But if Notre Dame is going to consider other candidates, and we're going to have a little fun with this, I've been hearing names like Luke Fickell at Cincinnati, but they're in the midst of a playoff run. Would Luke Fickell really give that up for a chance to coach Notre Dame, a team that he just beat at Touchdown Jesus? I don't know. I mean, I think Luke Fickell's got a good thing going on at Cincinnati. Cincinnati's fixing to move to a Power 5 conference. So I don't know if Luke Fickell's as much in play as people think he is. The other candidates that I'm hearing out there is Bob Stoops' name keeps coming up. Bob Stoops is right now, amazingly, the interim coach at Oklahoma until they can find somebody. Is he going to keep that interim tag, or is he going to become the new head coach at Oklahoma, like a lot of people think might happen? But I think that Bob has had his day at Oklahoma, and if he were to consider another college coaching job, I've said before, he said this before, Bob has always said that he has always coveted Notre Dame. Once again, Bob is just like Matt Campbell in that he is a Midwestern type guy. He's from Ohio, which is a border state of Indiana. So I think this Notre Dame job could be one of those jobs that could lure Bob Stoops possibly out of retirement. Now, the other name that was mentioned that I heard was Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. You know, his name's been brought up numerous times for jobs, even NFL jobs. He's a Northwestern alumnus, and that's what's basically kept him there, because he's had offers from NFL teams and still stayed at Northwestern. But there's a little interesting tidbit of history here as far as the Notre Dame and Northwestern connection that you guys and gals may not know. This is always my favorite thing to do. I love spitting out college football history for people and giving them little tidbits and things they can take back, and it's like, that's pretty interesting. Well, here's one of those interesting things that you might like, Notre Dame fans, and that is the last coach that Notre Dame got and hired from Northwestern was a guy by the name of Air Parsegian. Pretty damn good coach at Notre Dame in the 60s and the 70s. Bear Bryant could never beat the guy. So that's some good mojo right there if you guys decide y'all want to go outside the Matt Campbell thing and go after somebody with a good bit of a historical connection, maybe some good mojo about him, and that would be Pat Fitzgerald. Now, the other guy is Marcus Freeman, who is currently on staff as the defensive coordinator. But I caution the Notre Dame fans in trying to do this for continuity, because the last couple of times Notre Dame has done that, they hired Bob Davie and Charlie Weiss. We all know how that ended up. Neither one of them ended up doing very well. Bob Davie was okay. Charlie Weiss was a disaster. They ended up staying 5 years, but pretty much they sucked. So if I'm Notre Dame, I'm going to go after a guy with head coaching experience. Marcus Freeman is getting him a little audition. He's going to be the interim coach for the rest of the season. And Marcus Freeman will end up somewhere else, but I don't think it'll be at Notre Dame. But I think this will help him cut his teeth and get him that head coaching job that he deserves down the road. Now, there's one more guy that I'd like to throw out there for not just Notre Dame, but any of these other head coaching jobs that may or may not come open. Oklahoma included, who hasn't technically filled their spot yet, although it says they have been talking to Brett Venables at Clemson. But the out-of-the-box name that people need to consider, in my opinion, is Kyle Whittingham at Utah. He's done wonders at Utah. He brought them up from a non-Power 5 school to a Power 5 conference in the Pac-12, and has basically had them competing at a high level ever since. Hasn't had anything, it hasn't really tailed off that much. I mean, he's had a couple of subpar seasons, but for the most part, this guy has been spot on as far as a coach that can get things done. And I think Kyle Whittingham would be a guy that Notre Dame and Oklahoma both should consider. And that's the coaching candidates that I'm hearing out there that could be a possible replacement for this wild carousel that continues to spin out of control. And be our luck, Notre Dame probably go down there and steal Dabo Swinney or something. And then we'll be talking about who's going to replace Dabo Swinney at Clemson, because there'll be yet another big-time Power 5 program without a coach. Maybe Oklahoma goes and steals Josh Heupel, or Notre Dame steals Josh Heupel. And then we'll talk about Tennessee next week. The impatience and the backstabbing that's going on right now is just, it's out of control. I've never seen this many coaching changes with Power 5 programs and then them stealing them from other Power 5 programs, as I said earlier in this podcast. You guys and gals, give me your take on that as well. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams.